What's up guys, Noah from Stage 3 Motorsports, and today we are back in the shop with our Ford Ranger, and we're going to be focusing in on some suspension upgrades and then also probably throwing some side steps on here that we got from ADD. So first things first, we just shot an intro. We're about to start the install on the suspension, and what we got is a Fox 2.0 kit, or Stage 1 kit is what it would be called. So that gives us this 2.0 front coilover that's adjustable. We'll still probably run it at about 2 inches of lift, maybe 2.5. We'll see where we want to set that, but it won't be super tall. It's going to just keep that leveled stance. Then we got the 2.0 rear shocks for the back, which don't add any sort of level to the truck, but they do accommodate another 1.5 inches of lift in the rear if you wanted to add that. So the little bit of extra travel is nice, and then these should ride a lot better than just soft factory shocks or even the nitro shocks that we have on there right now. Looking forward to getting all this on there. I think it's going to ride really nice when it's done, and it'll be a good change of pace for this truck. So we're just going to get right into it. All right, we just finished up with the front suspension. So we've got our Fox 2.0 coil over here that you can see. Everything bolted up pretty nicely. I'd say the only real area that we had a fitment problem was these lower mounts on the coilovers are kind of twisted, so the holes don't line up right out of the box. So we actually had to put the hardware in there and then use kind of a pry bar to twist it straight so that the holes would line up on the bottom. Seems like that might be kind of a common issue with these. It's not the end of the world. A little bit annoying, but once that's twisted, everything fit just like it should, and I think it looks really nice. I'm definitely excited to see how it rides. But from there, we need to move around to the back now and get our rear shocks on, which should be really simple. We'll get that wrapped up, and then we can set this thing back on the ground. Okay guys, so we finished up the suspension on the Ranger, got the rears popped on real quick, and then I threw the wheels back on and dropped it down, and it looks great. I think the stance is spot on. We're still sitting probably around 2 inches in the front, it looks like, which is just right for this truck. That's about where we were with the spacer, and really I don't want to alter that a whole lot. I'm pretty happy with where it's at. So we've got everything buttoned up. The rear is the same height because those shocks don't really change ride height at all. They just give you a little more travel, so that's going to be perfect for what we're doing with the truck. On top of that, obviously you guys have probably seen this in the other videos, but the wheels and tires are something else that we added with this setup, and we didn't really mention them at the beginning because we wanted to tie it into this video talking about suspension. What we've got here is the black Rhino wheels. It's their Armory version in this gun black finish, and this is a 17 by 9.5 inch wheel with a 6 offset on it. So that sets it just like right outside the fender, just barely. It gives it a pretty good stance. We also took the wheel spacers off that we were running with the factory wheels, so there's nothing behind it pushing this out. It's just how it sits from the shop. Now with that, it's a BFG KO2, and that's a 285/70/17 that we did for the tire. So that rounds out to close to a 33. It's like a 32.8, I believe. And that's a really good tire fitment for this. That's actually the same tire that we ran with the stock wheel. So if you guys are interested in getting some of the details on that wheel tire combo before we did this overland style build, there's a separate video that we actually have out that explains how we cut the crash bars, where we put the wheel spacers on, and basically how that whole stance thing got sorted out. And that is actually a really good reference because those crash bars being chopped back is really what's allowing us to run this setup right now with the Foxes at 2 inches and the same tire in there. So definitely check that out if you guys are looking for some more details fitment wise. but we're really happy with the stance, and I think the wheel and tire is super aggressive looking. It's not too overboard for this truck, even though it looks a little tankish. I like that utility style that it has. Now, with all this being said, the one other thing you maybe noticed is that there's steps on the side of this truck now. Those are ADD's rock slider steps. We did an install video on that that'll be coming out. They're actually really simple. They just bolt up to the factory step locations. So there's a couple bolts that you get that go up underneath there. They look really nice. They're extremely durable. ADD stuff is really strong, but they are also pretty heavy, and the rock slider thing is a little misleading because they don't bolt to the frame. So we'll see how that pans out. I do like it a lot as a step though, and I think it's still a good look on the truck. So we'll see how those hold up, and we'll kind of use them over time as we get out with the vehicle. That's enough talking for now though. I think the big thing that everybody's wondering is how this actually drives, and we do need to get it out of the shop here and take it for a quick test run around the block and make sure that everything's straight and drives the way it should, and we're not getting any clunks or rattles or any problems like that. And I'm also curious to just give some first impressions on this Fox kit. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll this out of the shop. We'll go take it for a spin and let you know how that feels. So right off the bat, rolling this truck out of the parking lot, getting on the road here, getting, just cruising on some regular side streets, it feels pretty good. I think this has kind of got a similar feel to the Spacer, but it's a little more refined. Doing those Spacer kits stiffens up the suspension a touch, and that's one of the big things with these trucks is when they're stock, they're really soft, like a little too soft, and that's coming from somebody that likes suspension that isn't very rigid, but it's a little excessive. So when we had that BDS Spacer on here before this, it was a pretty good improvement. That was a nice, cheap, easy way to fix it. This feels like a little bit more of a refined stiffness that's got just more of a planted feel on the street. And I think especially off-road is where we're really going to tell the difference. A lot of times on the road you can get away with more because you're not really testing the truck suspension quite as much, and maybe you'll be able to tell a difference when you hit a speed bump or a larger dip or something like that, or just a generally poorly paved area of roadway. But once we get off-road, that's usually where you really start to feel the difference and kind of see why a coilover is better than a Spacer. One of the other kind of noticeable things is the truck has a lot less body roll and dive that happens when you get on the throttle or get on the brakes. So like even here, putting it down a little bit, dipping the brakes in to go turn off into a neighborhood, the truck doesn't really just sink in and settle hard. It'll nose in a tiny bit, and it feels really controlled and planted. And then as you kind of wiggle the truck around or, move this wheel from side to side, it's way more stable than it was from factory. It feels really nice. Also, if you're hearing some clunking, it's our storage box we have in the back sitting on top of the deck system. I forgot to strap that down, so it's kind of just sliding back and forth. But as far as the suspension and everything else is concerned, it's dead quiet in here too. We're not getting any weird rattles or, clinks and tingy noises. It's kind of bouncing over these speed bumps here. They're pretty minor, but the truck doesn't ride it out with any sort of dolphin diving going on. There's no floaty Cadillac feel where it takes it a while to stop rocking and settle. It definitely is a nice solid feel. I'll be more interested to feel it off-road once we go out and review this and really get our hands dirty with the truck, but so far I think this is a pretty darn good upgrade. And like I said earlier, the stance is sitting just right, so we're getting the best of both worlds here. We're pretty close to the end of this build and getting it set up for the kind of overland style that we really wanted. There may be a few other mods that we're working on to add to this thing, possibly a roof rack and maybe like some rotopacks, fuel cans, something like that. There's some accessory stuff that we've been looking into. I don't know exactly where that stands yet, but we may have one more video coming out on that. If not, we're definitely going to be running this truck, and we're going to try and get out and really use this thing now that we've got it set up the way we wanted it, and I think it's going to be really cool. As usual, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.